Hello, everyone. This is Sam, and today I would like to talk about backwards meaning making, metaphor making, and understanding, and how this in terms has affected our society today and how it affects also our individual experience of being human. Um, so, human beings are meaning making and metaphor making creatures. Like the human being is the only creature that actually makes meaning and metaphor about his own experience and about living in a community and in society, and what it means to be human and to live. Human beings are the only species that I know that does that. And as I understand it, it's always a backwards meaning making, by which I mean we experience something and we impose meaning to it. Like first we experience it. First there's the action. There's the actual direct experience, the direct um, uh, felt sensation of what's going on, and then after that there's actually what we call meaning making or metaphor making, and this is imposed on that situation that was currently or just beforehand being witnessed. So what that means is that all meaning that we put to our life, to our experience, is actually imposed after the event has happened. So the actual event has nothing to do with the meaning that we impose to it. And that's quite amazing, because what we human beings are capable of doing is we're able, through that meaning making process, through that metaphor making, and through understanding and put meaning to things that happen to us, we can actually draw conclusions out of these situations and improve ourselves or the situation in the next um, occurrence. When the same thing happens to us, we can draw back on our meaning making that we made in the previous situation, and we can learn from that and impose new meaning and better understanding to the next situation. And through this, we can actually grow to more understanding, to better ourselves. We can actually enhance our ability to respond in certain situations. And this greatly makes out the whole there is to what separates human beings from the rest of nature. And what I want to talk about today in this small talk is how this meaning making can actually create situations or whole viewpoints, beliefs, and values that are not really in a harmonious and a coherent way to the natural human state, to how we would naturally be. And what I point to with that is religions and all the values and beliefs that we have adopted as a society today that are actually detrimental and destructive towards human naturalness, towards human expression, and to whole of nature itself. Because as soon as we are destructive towards human beings, towards ourselves, we're also destructive towards nature, and vice versa. So how I see it is that there was actually meaning making that happened a long time ago, which had a great influence on the society then, which in turn led to that meaning making be adopted by a great many people and spread throughout the whole world. And that meaning that was made then, and I have like no idea how this came into being, but you can see it in many societies, in many religions, and in many beliefs and values that we hold as a society today. And it's the meaning that there's something wrong with human beings. There's something initially wrong with human beings. They don't seem to fit in. They're not able to live harmoniously with nature. They're not able to live harmoniously with each other and with themselves. So there must be something wrong with them. And the cause for most studies that have been made in the fields of psychology and other sciences is mostly to find out why is it that we as human beings are so wrong. Like what's inside human beings that make them that bad. And I think it's quite funny to have that in place, because we could easily look at it the other way around and look at it like, why is the human being that lives today as it is today? And instead of like making human beings wrong, like the individual, we could actually take a closer look at society in itself, and the values that society holds. And then kind of check with ourselves and with nature, and see how these values actually match with what we see in nature. And if they don't match, then we could just easily drop them. But that seems to be like out of the minds of so many people. Like, it's always out of the question that society or the values that we hold or religions in itself is wrong. Like, it's destructive in a way towards human being that we don't even know, like that we don't even consciously perceive. But there actually are values in religions and in the society today that we live in that are just like completely unnatural. Like, they don't allow human beings to unfold naturally and to express themselves naturally and to live naturally. And what I mean by that is, if you take a closer look at nature, you can see that just works. Like, nature just works harmoniously. There are so many systems interwoven and overlapping into each other, and that's just so fucking complex. Like, nature is so complex if you look at it from an understanding perspective of a cognitive perspective of a human brain. That's just so complex, so unbelievable complex to grasp how that works, but it just does. And nature doesn't need any laws or any police or anyone telling it how it's done, how it should behave, how it should do what it does. It just does it. And it does it in a way that it can go for a very long time. Like, that's a stable way of living. It's the best way for life to express itself. That's what nature is. And human beings are natural beings. Like, we're not outside of nature. We're totally part of it, like everything else. And I don't mean just like the human body. I mean everything that is human is actually part of nature. Like, there's no way we're outside of nature. And also culture and society are part of nature that are man-made, but it's still natural. Like, there's nothing unnatural in this existence. But as long as we have like values in our societies and in our systems that make human beings wrong for their natural expressions and for their natural way of being, then we're gonna have problems, and that's what we have today. So we have these beliefs and values in place in our in our societies that keep human beings from behaving the way they would if there wouldn't be any restrictions. How this happens is that a very long time ago, beliefs and values and certain meaning makings were made and imposed on a very large population of people, and they just passed it on. And that stuff had become so unconscious, so subconscious in the way we relate to it, that we just pass it on from generation to generation without even knowing what we do. And that's what happens when a child is raised in our system today. Because what happens is, when a child is raised, certain values and beliefs that the parents hold unconsciously are just passed on to that child, and the child experiences exactly what the parents have experienced as when they were raised. As long as the parents don't have any conscious work they did during their lifetime, and trying to dissolve these beliefs and values and actually question them. As long as the parents didn't do that, then the child will just be raised up as exactly as the parents have been raised up. And a lot of raising a child today is telling the child what not to do, like what it shouldn't do. And these things that we tell the children to not do are actually based on beliefs and values, and most of them are based on fear. So we have to kind of like dampen the energy of the child, the aliveness of the child, because we fear it way too much to see a child that alive. And I don't think that is a healthy way of actually raising a child. Like there might be advantages to it if you want to grow a child that is adapted to the society that we live in. But I don't think that is a healthy thing. And I don't think that's the main motivation either. Like that's often told to be the main motivation to raise a child in a way we do it today. But I don't think that's the main motivation behind it. I think the main motivation to raise a child that way and to dampen its energy and to dampen its aliveness is actually we fear seeing the child that alive because it's just too painful. And what I mean by that is that we know that state. We've been there. We've been the child. We know how it is to be alive. And we know how it is to be natural, like to just naturally express ourselves, to just be whoever we are, like whoever we were born to be, to just express that whatever, like without the restriction that society actually imposes on us. And that just hurts way too much to see children do that, because we know that we have been restricted and we are now restricted and we are not really living our full potential. And it's just too painful to see children in their full potential and their full aliveness, because it remembers us of our potential and that we are actually stuck and caged by society and by the values and beliefs that were imposed on us unconsciously. And that's a thing that is happening on a body level. Like we don't even have conscious comprehension of what is going on, I guess. Like I think this is happening, this whole dampening of the life energy of children is happening at such an early stage of their development that they don't even have like cognitive understanding for what was going on. So when they grow up, they actually grow up into a version of themselves which is compromised, and they don't really know why, and they can't really expand themselves, because what happened to them happened at such an early stage of development that they actually built up a personality around that, and later on their personality actually is composed of that compromised life energy. And I believe that out of that compromised life energy and that restriction that are imposed on us, this is actually the birthplace for all the anger, all the hatred, all the resignation, all the depression, all that stuff that plagues us as adult human beings. And that has a huge impact on our society and on our experience of life as individuals. I think that that is actually the birthplace, like that unconscious giving forth and um, giving these values to our children unconsciously and imposing rules and beliefs on them that we didn't actually check consciously for ourselves. We didn't actually check there for them for their functionality and for their positivity on the human experience. We just pass them on unconsciously. And yeah, I think that's just the root of all that we then face as adult human beings as problems, and that we see in today's society as problems. And behind that is actually the belief that if a child was able to grow up just the way it is, like if it's just able to fully express itself, and if it's able to have its needs met, have enough love, have enough attention, have everything that it needs out of natural needs and wishes, if these things are met, then that person would actually grow up to be the the most kind and humble and honest and productive person that there is. But it wouldn't be in a way that it would be productive in the way we think about it right now in a society sense. But it would be way more in a free, alive, creative, expressive way, and that is not needed, or that is not wished for in the society today. So that's also why these information are not really out there for everybody to gather. But I think what would happen if children would be raised in that way that I proposed, that we would become a way stabler and peaceful, a more peaceful and harmonious humanity. And this is also what I mean about um, saying that values and beliefs can actually be destructive for human beings, and that it's the other way around, that it's not actually the human being that is wrong, but that it's the values and the beliefs that we hold unconsciously as a societies that are wrong, in a way of suppressing the actual true life force expression of a human being. So this is the creation of values, of destructive values that are given to us by society. And this happens at such a unconscious level of human experience that is just passed on from generation to generation. Um, and it's not just that, like that's one aspect of it, but I think it's also a lot of other stuff that we can reach more consciously, like how we relate to sex, for example, is one other aspect of it, which is I think it's more conscious than that compromised part of ourselves, like that compromising of our life energy that happens at a way earlier stage of development. So there are other things that play into this passing on of beliefs and values that make up our society and that are actually detrimental to the individuals that live in this society and for humanity in a whole. So I guess the point that I want to make with all this rumbling around beliefs and values and unnatural things is um, I actually wanna bring up the question of what values and what beliefs that we hold as a society and as individuals are actually coherent with nature, are actually giving us the best experience that we can have as human beings. And I believe that a lot of people in society don't actually question these values and beliefs that are just passed on to them by religions, by um, ethics, moral, whatever there is that creates value around them, what their parents think. And I believe that we as human beings can only be free to the extent that we actually have questioned these values and beliefs that are imposed on us, either unconsciously or consciously. So I kind of want to raise the question to you to actually look at the values and beliefs that you hold in your current situation and in your cultural context that you're living in, and ask yourself for, like, how is this value I shaping my experience, shaping my way of relating to myself and to the world, and is it actually healthy, or is it supporting and positive in its outcome, or is it detrimental and destructive in its outcome for you in your subjective experience. And I, for myself, I just have had the experience of actually looking at these values and beliefs that society imposed on me, and also the expectations that are imposed on me by society. And by doing so, I could actually see them for what they were, like the values and the beliefs. I could see them for what they were, and what it does is it allows the possibility to actually hold different values, even paradox values and beliefs at the same time, and look at them and choose a value and a belief that just creates the best experience, and the healthiest experience for the longest time possible. And I think that as soon as we do that as a society, as like a collective, if we do that consciously to look at our values, we could actually grow a better humanity and a better society out of that, because we would have to test these values for their functionality and for the positivity of their outcome.